As you probably would have guessed, this would be a combination of video game and music, with a little bit of a story. Yeah, I think that's how I'm going to do it now. But you guys, who are probably younger, are thinking just by seeing the thumbnail, who the hell are the Beastie Boys? Well, the Beastie Boys are a rap rock group from the 80s who are famous for a lot of songs. And we will get to that. Let's go.
Keyboard Nerd Cubed has the floor.
The 80s were a great time for games and media. Freddie Mercury would go up on stage in Live Aid, the first ever Nintendo console would release, and of course, glam metal became the reigning champion of the decade. The reason I say the decade is because the 50s and 60s were dedicated to rock and roll, the 70s for metal, and the 80s glam metal, and the 90s rap music and so on and so forth. And during the 80s, bands such as Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Aerosmith, Iron Maiden, and Ozzy Osbourne, and of course many others, had hit the scene. Of course, during this time, rap and rock were not really the best combination, as it could be compared to putting mayonnaise on peanut butter with garlic. That was until Aerosmith and Run DMC combined forces. During the 80s, Aerosmith had hit a rough spot. They were starting to lose traction and were beginning to go back to the regular lifestyle. And during this time, Run DMC were in the works for making Raising Hell. They planned on sampling Walk This Way. Here's the genius annotation. Run DMC's original plan was to sample Walk This Way, which they mistakenly referred to as Toys in the Attic. It was Rick Rubin's idea for the rap group to actually re-record the song featuring original Aerosmith members, DMC members, sorry. Joseph Simmons and Daryl McDaniels hated the idea, but Rubin's persistence, Steven Tyler's caffeinated excitement, and Joe Perry's cool brilliance eventually convinced them to go through with the idea. The result was a smash hit that took Run DMC, to the mainstream and Aerosmith out from the brink of obscurity, and so on. When this hit was released, it went both on the rock and rap radio stations, causing Run DMC to be famous and Aerosmith's career to launch again, as mentioned before, and making rock/rap to be a thing in the universe of the music. But you are probably asking, how the hell does this relate to the Beastie Boys? We'll get to that, have patience. In 1986, while Run DMC and Aerosmith basked in their glory, three young men by the names Mike D, Adam Yauch, and Ad Rock would also want to be in the spotlight. And they needed to make an album that would make people who love rap love rock, and who loves rock to rap. So they got Rick Rubin, who is seen later in life with future rapper Eminem, and began to make their debut. Of course, the original name for unreleased album would be, and I will censor this to not offend, Don't Be a Faggot. Yep, that was the original name. They later changed it to make it sell. Of course, during this time as well, Columbia Records would sign Slayer. In case you do not know who Slayer is, or should I say was, they were a heavy metal band famous for their album Rain and Blood, as well as their subject matter such as the Angel of Death and an angel who was sent to hell wanting to make it rain blood. Yeah, pretty heavy shit here. So Rick decided we need a guitar player. So he hired Kerry King, the main guitarist for Slayer himself, and provided the guitar riffs for License to Ill. Now, I was not born in the 80s, but when I first heard the song, we will get to when I heard the song, called No Sleep Till Brooklyn, it was great. And great in the 80s too, as it ranked 5 mics from the source. And not the source you're thinking of. So years later, the Beastie Boys released album after album, went to tour after tour, and glam metal was starting to die down and metal and new metal came into play, as Limp Bizkit, Korn, and Alice in Chains became more and more popular. Oh, and of course Pantera. And then we enter the 2000s. Now, in the 2000s, a lot more stuff had happened. Dimebag Darrell was shot, Johnny Ramone from the Ramones died, and Southern hip-hop was shot out of the cannon and onto the scene, as Nelly, Eminem, 50 Cent, and so on. I mean, rock and metal were still popular, but West Coast and Southern hip-hop was more the reigning champ. And of course, during this time as well, Rage Against the Machine split up, making Tom Morello known for form Audioslave with Rage's drummer and released Coach Ice, and so on and so forth. And that's when 2008 happened, when Guitar Hero World Tour came onto the scene. Now, as I had mentioned before about Hello Allison was in Jet Set Radio Future, this song was in Guitar Hero World Tour, a game in which it had an all-star cast of musicians, from Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins to the guy who sang Cat Scratch Fever, Mr. Ted Nugent. It is what most kids from the 2000s remember. That and also many of the licensed songs, from Freak on a Leash to About a Girl by Nirvana off of their MTV Unplugged special. When I heard No Sleep Till Brooklyn, I fell in love with the Beastie Boys, as this song I played multiple times, and years later, as an adult, I have finally collected License to Ill. A PAL import, by the way. Thank you guys for watching this video. I know it's a little bit short, but I'll be working on my Guitar Hero 1 video. If you guys have any ideas on what I would like to cover, put it down in the comments down below. Peace!